Okay, Shalom Uvracha, everyone, my dear friends. Welcome to our next Heliga Shabbos Chabur. We're going to almost call it Redemption Chabur because God willing. So the date today is Rosh Chodesh Shvat. Chodesh Tov to everyone. May this month of Shvat be the beginning of the revelation of all that we've planted and developed over these last number of months, and may it become slowly and gradually to fruition. Today is January 3rd, 2022. So we are holding in the practical application of Loish and Ma'amer. I'm going to do a quick 1-minute review. And as you're doing it, I want you to ask yourself, is this clear? Does this make sense? And if it's not, at the end of the talking part, please ask questions. One general question will be is how you relate to time. How do you relate to a day? How do you relate to these 4 cycles, the 4 parts of the day? And how does a day become a building block towards Shabbos? That's what we're going to really be addressing through this unit of time. So we said every malacha contains a spiritual koyach, a spiritual power of creation. Ma'amer, number 4, and Loish were 2 aspects of the same thing. They both had to do with creating a collective. Ma'amer, the 4th one, was gathering, and we used examples like a bouquet, a strand of pearls, etc. And then we talked about Loish, water and flour mixing together. So we asked, what's the difference between the 2? Clearly, if there's 2 malachot, then they have to be fundamentally different, even though it may look like their creational energies are similar or very the same. So we basically made a very important distinction that there are what we call these 2 levels of togetherness. A limited level of togetherness called the bouquet, where every flower is part of the bouquet, but still very distinct, separate, and perceivable. And then we said the loish, the kneading, is when the water and flour disappear within the other and a new substance is created, dough, whether it's a thick dough or runny substance. So we said, we learned from that there are 2 madregas, there are 2 levels of togetherness, which is really a fascinating thing. I have to tell you, this to me is just by far one of the most fascinating things. Kasha, as my kids say, kasha lamaisa, a difficulty, a question in practice. Why would we need 2 melachot to distinguish levels of togetherness? So I wanted to suggest, and I think it fits very profoundly, that when you're trying to bridge aloneness to oneness, right? The deepest pain a person could ever have in this life is existential aloneness, and the greatest pleasure a person could ever have is existential oneness. And the 2 have no shaykhs to one another, except through a bridging point called togetherness. The lower part of togetherness, building the bouquet, ma'amer, is the segue up from feeling existentially alone towards a limited level of togetherness. And then existential oneness, 1 level down from that, is this high level of togetherness that Losh brings. And when Losh and Ma'amer come together, they bridge existential aloneness with oneness. That's the concept. So we applied it and said, well, where would this apply? So we said the most generic forms of looking at the world is called soul, time, and space. Soul is the level of nefesh, which is where the attributes are all filled in. Time, which we're going to be dealing with today, and then space, Mitzvah Shem, over the next few weeks. So we said, how does it apply to time? So this is based on a Kabbalistic interpretation. Rav Yitzchak Isaac Chaver, who is a Talmud of the Talmud of the Goin, has a parish, an explanation of Neitz Chaim, which is the compendium of the Rizal. And he says it just a 1 or 2 liner explaining, but there's a lot of depth. He says the day itself, just based on Chumash and based on the Shema, we have 4 parts to a day. B'shivtecha b'veisecha, right, when you're in your house. Uvlachtecha v'derech, when you go on your way. Uveshachbecha, when you go shluf. Uvkumech, when you get up. So, as explained, the Balaturim actually explains these are 4 parts of a day. And the 4 parts represent the first half of the day, which is the most lightest and brightest. The second half, which is diminishing light. The first half of the night, which up until the midnight hour, not 12 midnight, but whatever the halachic hour is. And then the last 6 hours, which means a day is subdivided, 24 hours divided by 4. Now, if it's equals daylight and darkness, which only happens in March 21st and September 21st, right? The midpoint of the solstice, then it's 12 and 12, 12 hours of light, 12 hours of darkness. However, when the rotation of all the luminaries shift, that halachic hour is going to change so much so that around now it's around 45 minutes of daylight for every hour. Okay, that means in every 60 minutes, a halachic hour is really called 45 minutes now, which means it's shrunk a quarter. It's a lot. It's a lot of loss of daylight from 12 hours. That means in 12 hours, a quarter is 3 hours. That means we've dropped, at least approximately in Cleveland where we are now, depending where you're in the world, but approximately we lose 3 hours of daylight. So that drops to 9 from 12. And then the darkness goes from 12, it gains it to 15. So Chazal are telling us through the Psukim that the daytime actually works in a rhythm of 4 parts. And this is what the Baal HaTurim is explaining based on actually the first verse in Chumash. We mentioned this before. We added instead a very important thing. If what we're trying to apply it to togetherness of what? Opposites. What two opposites? Light and dark. Okay, so that's nice, but what does that have to do with our discussion? Well, we talked about on a soul level, a mashpi and makabel, an emanating force and a receiving force, is the male and female dimensions, that which of giving and that which of receiving. And we spent a few sessions on that. That's in the realm of soul. In the realm of time, it comes out the daytime is the zachar realm, the male realm, and then the cave and the nighttime is the female realm. The daytime is emes and the nighttime is emunah. And for a full 24-hour period, you must relate to emes and emunah, and then emunah back to emes. So emes rolls into emunah, and emunah rolls back into emes, which means every 24-hour period of day and night, night and day, is a relationship of male to female and female to male, emes to emunah, and emunah to emes. That's actually what a person could feel and experience. And we took it a little bit further. What Rabbi Yaakov said is that even in the light time, approximately again 12 hours in exact time if it was, or whatever the split is, number of hours in the day, halfway is the male part of the light when the light is becoming in its strongest, and when it's retracting, called the or choizer, that's the female part of the day, like hours 7 through 12, whatever the amount of minutes are, but 1 through 6 is the male part of light, the male part of the male, and the second half of the daylight hours when the light is returning, less strong, less potent through the luminaries, 7 through 12, is the female part of the male though. Now we said on the nighttime, it's going to be the same thing, except just in reverse. It's dark hours. So the first part of the evening, going up until Chatzos, which is where the beginning of actual Tikkun Chatzos is, that's the male part of the female part of darkness. Means even in the darkness, the emunah, there's an emes part, it's the lighter part of the night. And then the darkest part, where the darkest part starts to flip and becomes fully revealed again into light, that's the female part of the female. So that's all we said. But now, why is this relevant to us? If we want to use ma'amar, forget Losh again, because I think Losh is a much higher level to look at it. It would basically mean is asking yourself these questions. How do I relate to time in general? How do I relate to a unit called a day? Have I ever thought of how to break a day down into 2 halves, daytime and nighttime? And how do I relate to the daytime, as we call that emes, what's revealed? And how to relate to the nighttime, in what's called concealed, the emunah part. And then we just subdivided each one into 2. That's it. Then the last question we're going to throw in, and then I'm going to open it up in a few minutes, is how do we look at each day as a building block towards Shabbos? Okay, for all those who are still holding by, each day is getting ready for Shabbos. So a day isn't just a day is 1/6 in preparation towards Shabbos. And that means if we look at a day in preparation to Shabbos, 1/6, amazing. In a day, it subdivides into light and dark, male and female, and in each of the 12 hours of light and dark, there's a male and female part. What we're trying to attune, the togetherness, and this is the point that we're going to like to throw for discussion. The ma'amr part is, don't look at day and night as disparate. Look at them as like a bouquet, a basket, a strand of pearls, that it's one unit called a day. And a day is made up of yom v'layla, light and dark. And when you can start to orient to that, then you know what starts to happen? You actually will feel the rhythm of the daytime and then how it melds into the night and how the night gives birth to a new day. And then eventually when you get, really into like it's amazing how you literally, I was very excited when I saw this source. It was a thrill because it's telling us not just, as a kids, we used to call it PTH, prime tanning hours. If you get it to the midday from, 12 till, 2:45, the sun is at its strongest, then it starts to retract. We look at it as HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a luminary and he's emanating the light. And when the light shifts from the Or Yashar, the light that's emanating straight, to the Or Chodesh, what is retracting, that means spiritually the energies of the day are changing in every 6 hours. And therefore, learning how to do the right things at the right time. And this is, I believe, even one of the questions. We can address this as we get into the questions. So I'm going to throw out the questions now, and then we have a good hour. And I really would like to discuss this. You can ask any points of, if we have to repeat some points in whatever way, as long as you sincerely want to understand, please ask. But I want you to answer any of these questions. How do I relate to time? Because we're trying to see togetherness of opposites, light and dark, emes and amuna, male and female, and how it's a composite called a day. So how do I relate to time? How do I relate to a day? Am I strong in the daytime or nighttime? And think about it in these terms. And how do I develop a mindset, a perception of togetherness, limited togetherness, that the day and nighttime don't have to be so disparate, so opposite. There's a way to actually look at them together in a limited way. They haven't completely lost their status as day and night, because that would be losh. That's a very high way to look at time, as if there really is no day and night. It's all just Hashem. That would be the losh level, very high. But on the ma'amr level, how do I begin to think about a unit of 24 hours in losh? A sense of divine togetherness growing through time. And then the highest question you could ask, and you can answer or answer any of them, which is, how do I relate to a unit of 24 hours in togetherness with Shabbos, which means chol, building towards Shabbos, and Shabbos bringing you back to a new level of chol. So those are the questions. That's a perception of how we look at time, how we experience time, and how we relate to time. Now on the ground, we have an opportunity to discuss it. Okay, that's it. That's all that's as clear as we can get. But now let's field the questions, get a little bit of a feel for what the divine rhythm of time is. And then you can open up to whatever, but the goal again is to have the consciousness of ma'amer working towards loish, a limited sense of togetherness of a day, and a limited sense of togetherness of a day in relation to Shabbos. And how do you relate to that? And again, when we're busy doing, achieving, accomplishing, functioning, running around, we're not necessarily thinking about the spiritual dimension of time and how it relates to a sense of togetherness of a zachar and the keva. But the holy writings say it very explicitly and are ultimately teaching us how to sensitize ourselves to making divine time itself. Okay, and with that, the floor is yours. I have a computer today. My wife is kind, thank you. So I can actually see who is talking. So please feel free and I'll be able to address you a little more easily.
Rabbi Labinsky.
Hi, shalom.
Hi, thank you. This is such new and interesting material, and I would just like to be able to apply it. So how can we use this information to make the best use of our time during the day? How, in terms of davening, in terms of work, in terms of learning, in terms of
Great question.
How can, yeah.
Great question. Okay, I love the question. I'll tell you why for two reasons. One, because it's practical. And two, you actually brought in some of the 9 conditions of a malacha on the realm of action and outcome, right? To be constructive, to be effective, to be efficient. Those were some of the 9 qualities in action and outcome, right? The 9 conditions that make up a malacha. And it's a practical. So right off the bat, really important to understand how Chazal understand the rhythm and accomplishment of time. Well, let's start with the obvious, right? There's something called Neitz Achama. To daven Neitz means to daven, right? By sunrise. That means you want to coincide it. So whatever Neitz is in Cleveland, Neitz now is 7:58 today. It's very late, obviously, because in the summertime you can get as early as 5:25. That means you'll daven whatever you have, morning brachas and Psukei de Zimra and the Shema, and you're coordinating to step into the Shemona Esrei silently right at that peak of light, which means what? At that first seconds, and it even goes down to the seconds, fascinating. In the first minute of the first hour of the first part of the sunlight, we want to be at the highest level of consciousness. So what does that teach us right off the bat? Just something very simple, what Neitz teaches us. Yes, it's a wonderful thing to daven Neitz, but beyond that, it means that we want to hit our peak throughout the beginning hours of the day. The first, we said the first 6 hours is the Or Yashar, the stronger emanating light, the male part of the male. So within that time is the ideal time to daven. Okay, so that's important right off the bat. That includes his boinanus, reflective time, his boidadus, time to talk with Hashem, your own learning time. It's a very potent time when the darkness is flipping into the light itself. It's not just, oh, what a pretty sunrise. Isn't that lovely? Yeah. Beyond that, and again, a sunrise is exquisite to look at. It's mesmerizing, but we want to plug in soulfully, not just naturally. In addition, saying the Shema. We know the Shema has to be within the first 3 halachic hours and davening in the first 4 halachic hours to be completed. That means the Shema is in the first quarter of the whole 12 hours of a 12-hour cycle of light. That means the first quarter is the Shpitz, the most potent part, declaring the Shema, which is a deraisa. And believe it or not, most opinions other than the Rambam say that Tefillah is d'Rabbanan. And therefore, there's an extra hour, which is the first third of the day. So that means we want to hit certain peak powers of spiritual connection at that time period. Not just, okay, did I make this man? Yes, that's functional. You absolutely need to be attuned to and aware of the zmani, right? Because when Hashem says, my zmani, it's not the website. He's saying, my zmani, right? So it means that we have to be attuned. So clearly learning and davening, very important to peak. Know why? Because davening, learning, he's boidadus, the Shema, and all the things you'll do in that morning creates the potential for what your day is going to be. So you're going, okay, I daven and I made this money, but now look at it in ruchnias. What's the point of davening, right? So Shachar is interesting. The root letter Shachar, the letters turned around is Choresh, which is Charisha, plowing, the first malacha. So Shachar is plowing into your day. It's creating the full new potential of everything you can, God willing, and will become. And that Shachar will mamshich, will continue forward throughout the day. Therefore, it's so important to get a good start to the day in line with the cycle of light. Now, let's say I'm late, get better. So I go to bed 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm just barely pushing to make the very last possible, I forget Magen Avram time. I'm going with the Goyen and the Baal Shem Tov to get the very last possible times. You're really behind the cycle. You're not in the time, you're not at the incipient point, Nates, and then you're more like when it's fully expanded and you're in the last possible moment. So at that point, the window is not as strong. So in all ruchnistic levels, it's very important to catch that rhythm in the first quarter or first third of the 12-hour. Okay, so that would be the first thing. And that means all the ruchnistic endeavors. Be at your best and sow important seeds for the whole day that are born out of that first, third, and first quarter of the day. That's really chashuv unto itself. The next peak level is chatzos yom, the mid hour of the day. That means 6 halachic hours, not 6 full hours, because again, we said a halachic hour right now is about 45 minutes. So here it's around 12:30 right now, 12:29, 12:30. So that means by that point, that's the peak of the day in light hours, which goes, hold on, the day is barely started. But in terms of the light cycle, it's not true. It's hitting its peak. So that means if you're peaking at 12:30, you're going like, well, the day is barely started. That means I want a chaparine to get the full expression of certain things in motion. Okay, then the next 6 hours, halachic hours again, until again sunset, and then 40, 42, 50, 52, 72 minutes after, which is, it says kochavim. So at that point, then second half of the day is the nekeva part, which is called the or chayzer. The light is now returning, which means just like the sun itself, says the Nefesh HaChaim, the physical luminary is only manifesting as a mashal for the spiritual luminary, which means the light is getting less strong. It's returning back to its source, which means the nekeva part means it's now revealing fully the emes that you generated in the first half of the day. You want to come to a certain degree of culmination, full expression, full revelation by sunset. Okay, because at sunset now, it's a suffix, it's a question, but which day is it? Is it day 1, Yom Rishon, Yom Sheni, what have you? So at that point, that's why there's different debates about how many minutes after sunset before it's definitively the next day. But now you're in a transitional part, which means the day is becoming over. The plane is now setting. So at that point, you're wrapping up the whole reality of emes, the male dimension, what you could see, your ability to perceive things in an open reveal, which is being sensitive to light itself. And now, once Seis Kochavim come, 3 middle-sized stars at approximately 50 minutes, is at least in Chutz La'aretz, in Eretz Yisrael, it's around 18 minutes. We work with now you're in that realm of Amunah, which means it's the Nekeva realm. Now, even though the first part of the night is the Zachar part of the Nekeva, on a detail level, on a cloud level, it's Nekeva, which now means if you have to flick on all the lights and you're just busy like that, you're not working in the rhythm. And it doesn't mean you have to live, as my kids say, Tati, you look like a bat at night because, you like the lights on the dark as possible and the candles and all that. But at some level, it's being attuned to the spiritual energies of the Nekeva, of the Amunah. So what is that? That's being a makabel. During the day, it's the mashpia energy. That's the male energy. And during the nighttime is the makabel. That means you go to a quieter place, a more humble place. Now, obviously, not so easy with kids, whether you have to drug them or read them stories or what have you at night. But, and of course, being facetious, but it means that things calm down and things slow down and things ease up at nighttime. And that means you are now being attuned to a receiving force. And that means the things you do at night are in a receiving way. So one practical thing that would come out is reviewing your day, doing cheshbon nefesh, doing a spiritual accounting, a physical accounting of your day, whether it's time use as was just alluded to, what did I accomplish today? And then also work towards preparing for the next day. So that's part of a receiving. Another part which is critical is thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the blessings of the day, both what came to you and both what were planted going forward. And then also feeling the humbleness, the humility, and the smallness of, you can only do, now again, the advent of electricity, on the one hand, changes things because you can act as if it's daytime and night. But I have to tell you, I'm not an advocate. I'm really not, because you fall into the sensitivities of nighttime and Amunah and then the Nekeva part of yourself. You don't get into a rhythm of wrapping up a day, closing things out, preparing for the next day. Even the learning, it's a quieter place to learn in one's mind, because when you're in a receiving mode, you can be open to different kinds of learning, different ways of thinking, including Chatzos Laila, which is the third part, the end of the female part now, the male part of the female part. So Hala would be hours 13 through 18, whatever that is, to say Tikkun Chatzos. And then, of course, getting ready, the last 6 hours, getting up, moving, and then getting ready to greet the day. But it's an attunement to winding down, closing things down. Again, as you know, and I don't think we have to go too far, it's not so easy for people at night to fall asleep. For an insomnia, go Google anything in insomnia, find books after books after books with all the physical, psychological, emotional, physiological, everything kinds of reasons why people have insomnia. But when you think about this, it's very clear. The body has a circadian rhythm that's attuned to the rhythms of Hashem's light and dark cycles. And when it's attuned, and you work within that, and you learn how to wind up at the right times, and how to peak at the right times, and how to slow down at the right times, and how to wrap up and close up and fully shut down at the right times. No problem sleeping. Why? Because you're not willing yourself to sleep. Hashem is. He's working it through the light and dark cycles. But however, Kolzman, the whole time that the nighttime is daytime, and your brain is revving and your body is revving, and I got so much to do and so many things to accomplish, and I got all the emails, this and the text and everything else. And then it's 12 and 1 and 2, and then then by the time I want to slow down, then it's 2-3 hours after, and then it's well, what do you think is going to happen? You're not in a rhythm. You're not in your own rhythm, and you're not in a rhythm of creation. So then, of course, you're going to have sleeping challenges, but that's not your big issue. Your big issue is you're not relating to the divine part of time in general. We're not connecting to the cycle of a full 24 hours with a 12-hour day and 12-hour night. And you're not plugging into the spiritual part of that, which is the emes to the emunah, the truth to the faith to the truth, the male and female emanating and receiving qualities. And you're not plugging into living into Hashem's life from your soul through your body. That's really where it starts. And then, of course, come Shabbos, we'll just say one quick thing, then I like to open up one. We've got lots of time. Each day is 1/6 in preparation for Shabbos. So that means not only did I be successful and work on whatever I did for Yom Rishon, which is the first day from Motzei Shabbos to Sunday night, that's the meat of Chesed. So that means there's an explosion of newness emanating Motzei Shabbos. That's why it's very good to concretize new things for the week, Motzei Shabbos. Melachos escorting up the queen, and then draw her forward into the week. Concretize it something for the week, and also even for Shabbos. To always say today is the beginning, first minutes, an hour of the first day toward Shabbos, which means we only exist from one Shabbos to another. So therefore, if I would look at even a day that way, plugging into that rhythm, all I'm doing is living toward Shabbos, living in Shabbos, or moving out of Shabbos to build the next one. Now just imagine feeling a day like that. Right? It's very, and sometimes the day in honesty, I had lots going on the last few days. We were out of town a lot and lots of things going on. And I naturally woke up at 3 a.m. today. And I'm like, I'm not sitting in bed, got lots thinking about lots I want to learn. And I was often going, I apologize to my wife, probably have to ask her for Mechila again. But I went to the call before 4 and started my learning in the Avodah for the day. It was very exciting to work in the rhythm of Rosh Chodesh. That's another whole level, and plugging into that, and how Shvat is already segueing the second part. So you see all the rhythms of time, but what's the main point is the sense of togetherness of the opposites, light and dark, male and female, emanating productivity and pushing forward and pulling back and receiving and drawing in with a sense of thankfulness, a sense of appreciation, a sense of closing down the day, and a sense of sowing seeds for the next day. Okay, so those are some ideas about, I don't know if that was helpful, but those are some ways that practically you can apply it throughout the day, the week, going forward. Was that in line what you're looking for, something different? Okay, we'll assume that it was fine. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. No, thank you very much. There was my thing disconnected. I'm having so much disconnection problems here. It must be because it's so important.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Could I ask one more thing? It's a bit unrelated, but I'm just wondering, like someone who's born at Shkia, right between the end of the day and the beginning of the night.
Right, so that's a That's another great point, but it's not actually deviating. Let's just highlight it for a moment. Okay, so you have day and night and all these things we just said, but the whole point is how do you perceive togetherness? One thing is a flat bouquet. You have roses and you have lilies and petunias and whatever else, and you throw them all together. Beautiful. But day is day, night is night. They don't mix. Light is light, and emes and amuna, they're not the same thing. So the middle point, right, of anything is what unifies opposites. A middle point called the nekudas hachibur, the point of connection, has aspects of both, but not exclusively one or the other. And because of that, it has the ability to unite opposites. That transition from shkia, from sunset to tseis, which we can call twilight zone or however you want, is that transitional point. And then there's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that talks about the many things that were created during the twilight period, because it has to do with things of a transitional nature. So this point is worth noting, is that in that twilight zone, kind of like, it's not quite so bright, but it's not fully dark yet, and kind of squinting, especially if you're driving. And then when it's finally dark, your eyes can settle into the nighttime. But so that means also spiritual, this is a whole other discussion, but transitionally, that time period is how you would have aspects of emes and aspects of amuna, aspects of the male blending with the female that are overlapping in a way that you can connect, you can be mechaber one to another. So therefore, if you use the twilight time period wisely, it would really come out. No joke. I mean, it's like real. This is why one opinion, actually, the Rizal says that's why you're supposed to light right at Shkia for Hanukkah, because at that point, the potency is very great. The beginning of the darkness is right already there. There's other shittas that say 20 minutes after, others wait till it's fully dark. Again, another discussion. But what it means is be sensitive to transitional points as a place to connect opposites, because that's how you can blend those two together. That would also apply at midday. So at the midday point, between the Or Yashar and the Or Choizu, when the light is at its peak and it's starting, that's a transitional point. And the same thing in the nighttime. Chatzos Laila is that same thing. So the twilight zone is that between the overall 12 hours of day to the overall 12 hours of night, the transitional point for the Nekudas Achibur. Within the day, the midday is the full 6 hours, going into the very beginning of the 7th hour by day, and the same thing by night. That's Chatzos Yom and Chatzos Laila. Chatzos Yom would be applied for something like a fast day. If a person couldn't fast and they want to do something, then it says a Chetzi Yom is Kukula. Half a day is like a whole day, and therefore if you fast a half a day, it's like fasting a whole day. So Chatzos Yom. And we can clearly see Chatzos Laila in terms of Tikkun Chatzos means when the full darkness is breaking and the beginnings of the first minute of the 7th hour at nighttime is starting, that begins the process of sanctifying the nighttime to awaken the Shekhinah, because again, why? That's the female part of the female. And that's what Tikkun Chatzos is for Rachel, for the Shekhinah. So now you see all of a sudden, wow, Hashem gave us through mitzvot these incredible secrets into time and how to relate to the divine part of time and how to plug into the rhythm of time within any part of a day, within a day, between days, a day into Shabbos, a week into Rosh Chodesh. And you're going, it doesn't mean again, we deny the fact there's lots to do. Yeah, there's lots to do in a day and there's lots you want to accomplish. But again, feeling the rhythm, you can't be at a peak all the time. And you can't be at a low point all the time. So in the highs and lows and the ruts of a shoyves, it's learning how to work to build up, to hit the peak, hitting the peak to come down and surge again, both during the daytime hours, the revealed, and the nighttime hours, the concealed. And the more attuned you are to that, that's what all these various halachic discussions about various mitzvahs, when to do what, when, this is what they're talking about, how to maximize and optimize the potency of our action, both in mindset, the first 3 conditions, in action, and then outcome, to achieve the maximum spiritual intentionality, action, and results at the peak times with the most potency. Do you know how blessed we are to have the Torah? It's unreal, unreal. Thank you. Hashem endlessly. It's a gift upon gift, really. Okay, excellent. Thank you very, very much for starting us up.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Other comments, questions, or reflections? We have lots of time, please. This is my obligation to share and your pleasure to receive back. So please.
Rabbi Labinsky, that's early, but hi.
Hello.
Good Chodesh. So this is like my main avoda, besides that I do Shabbos, the project of trying to get us all in this zone. I really feel like I would appreciate even more. I'm assuming that I missed something that you were saying, what you already covered, because two things, well, maybe more. One thing is that the whole idea, what you just mentioned about Shkia, obviously is very, very important when it comes to Shabbos, because that's Hadlakas Neiros time. And there's the whole idea that bringing it in a little early has to be like that you're pulling in Emunah, like drawing it into your day with like a...
Into emes. You're drawing the moon back into emes. That's what you're doing. 18 is Chai. So you're connecting the life force of Chai. You're making a point of chibur, a point of connection between the last part of Chol into the beginnings of Kodesh. That's what you're doing. And when you really feel that, one of my rabbim say, Rabbi Beckhofer said, the best, most poetic, mystical way I ever heard that described, it's when the finite kisses the infinite. Oh, you gotta love that.
Right.
When the finite kisses the infinite, that's the transitional point, and that's when we go into L'Chadedi. And when you feel that, you literally feel Kabbalah Shabbos. You receive mamish, the Shekhinah in you. You feel the finite kissing the infinite. It's literally, that's it.
So it's so perfect, because that's like the beginning of Shir Shim, Yishakeni Mishikos Pihu. It's like, that's what you... So this is amazing. So some of my questions, like this idea of bringing the Kodesh into Chol is part of when you prepare something for Shabbos every day, right? Because that's how we count the days, right? Hayom Rishon b'Shabbos, Hayom Sheni b'Shabbos, right? So I wanted about that, and I also wanted like personal eitzah. I don't know if anybody else. I don't have any yucky blood. I was thinking of contacting the blood bank and asking if I could have just a pint. Like it would be such a bracha. But
get a phlebotomist here and we'll hook you up and
I'm sure about that. But I feel like there's a category, not ADD, not this, just TC, temporarily challenged, like of being able to not bite the bullet, not be late all the time. The reason I started the Shabbos Beam Project is because I'm always running late. And when I learned from Rav Cholodetsky, not only that Shabbos is Makor Bracha, and that's all the issues, but that 10 minutes is the greatest Eis Ratzon, is that 10 minutes, right? Which is like, we have to be crazy to pass that up, right?
And I'll add even more. The Eis Ratzon actually starts b'chatzos yom erev Shabbos. So Friday afternoon at the midday, you could say, where do you get that from? Fascinating. Few halachas, but really when you think about them, fascinating. If a person has to eat, you're not supposed to eat after the 9th halachic hour, washing. But if a person has to wash for whatever reason after the midday point, meaning after 6 halachic hours going into the 7th, ready for this? You say Shir Amalos. What? Not Al Naros Bavel or nothing. Shir Amalos, like on Shabbos or Yom Tov, or why? Because already the Chidah says by Chatzos Yom Erev Shabbos, here's your midway point again. The beginning of the Kedusha of Shabbos is starting to come in, and because of that, we are obligated to say Shir Amalos, benching, at the 6 hours and 1 minute, all the way till, if you have to, you're ideally not supposed to, but if you have to, that's one thing. Second thing that Rizal brings down, if a person, again, Rahman Aslan passes away and it's close to Shabbos, which is hard to arrange, but if they actually are buried after Chatzos, Erev Shabbos, it's the most mesugal, the most treasured time to be buried, because what's called Chibur HaKever, the rolling in the ground that has to happen to purify the body, and as it migrates to Eretz Yisrael or within Eretz Yisrael, the Arizal brings down the body is spared of chibut altogether, complete, like nothing, no rolling, nothing. If a person is buried after Chatzos Yom, Erev Shabbos. Now, the obvious question is, who can plan for that? Okay, so I'd like to be, sorry, my dear friends, we don't will our beginning or end point, Hashem does. But if it's decreed in a way that you actually are buried Erev Shabbos after Chatzos Yom, after the midday point, then the Chibur HaKever, you're exempt from complete, which tells, so what's the inference? Because the Erev Shabbos, at that point, the Kedusha of Shabbos is coming in already. That itself purifies even the body. The body doesn't need to go through Chibur HaKever. So there are many more examples, but those two in particular, I find just so fascinating to tell us, all right, not just at 18 minutes before, for sure, but we're talking about midday already. Therefore, the Chida also brings down, because of that, the Satan is going to go doubly hard from that point because it senses the Kedusha flow is already coming in. Mamish, Shira Malais. So now, we got to get them because, before the first 6 hours of Erev Shabbos, meaning from Thursday night till Friday morning, or those first 12 hours, okay, it's not there, it's still Erev Shabbos first part. But now that the real Kedushas the beginnings of that are mamish coming in, it's doubling its effort. Even that it's a proof in the -4. It has to fight harder because the Kedusha flow is beginning to come in, which is the whole basis for Tosefes Shabbos to increase bringing in Shabbos early. That starts at Chatzos Yom already by this. That means, again, right now, approximately 12:29. So some people are makpid to have everything ready by then already, because Tati, I already want to get ready. I want to be in pre-Shabbos, not just getting ready for Shabbos, pre-Shabbos by Chatzos Yom. Mardik, you can hear why, for all the reasons we said, in the positive sense. In the negative sense, why? Because you have to expect the unexpected. It's a given. The sun ain't taking a holiday because you are, or you're too busy, you're too far. He knows what's coming to the world. He knows what's coming to Klal Yisrael. He knows what's coming to you. And therefore, at that point, doubling the effort, and you go, why did these create? It always gets crunched to the end, and all these kooky things always happen for this reason. So whether it's avoiding the dark forces, whether it's beginning to receive the reality of Shabbos, whether it's beginning to orient for moving forward, tremendous thing to get ready by Chatzos Yom in whatever way that you can. It shows your Tati that I don't want to just remove the negative forces, or at least anticipate them so much and be ready. Going to the mikvah also at that point at that juncture point too. But Tati, I want to be in your pre-Shabbos mode, and I want to makabel the next several hours up until candlelight. Can you imagine if you started already there, pre-makabeling Shabbos? Not a joke. You say can't be done, really? Yeah. If I said to you, I'll give someone $1,000 for every week, you can do that? Oh, Rabbi, does that start this week? If I travel time zones and I can figure out how to be, can I get 2,000? Can I get in euros because it's a higher, or Japanese yen, please? Hello, really? So for $1,000 you do it, but for eternity you won't. Really? Lack of clarity. Sorry. So therefore, if it's for Yeshua, Geula, Hatzalah, you pick any cause you want. For the Shechina, for Gans Klal Yisrael, for Shidduchim, for Parnasa, for Shalom Bayis, for Chinuch Banim, or just simply for the love of Shabbos. Hello. Makabel to get ready by Chatzos, where it's like I don't have, I could receive it then, but I'm not. So maybe I'll learn, I'll say Tehillim. Maybe one of the things I do Erev Shabbos, I have an Avos Chinam calls to different people. Don't be offended if you don't get it. It's different kinds of cheshbonos, but I have my Avos Chinam time in phone calls and in text to different people as part of my pre-Shabbos, meaning I'm already pre-Shabbos. To do that, not just to get rid of the week, not pre-Shabbos, to get ready for that. So the more things you sensitize yourself, so by the time it comes to lighting, 18 minutes before, 30 minutes before, the Tosefes Shabbos that's emanating from Chatzos Yom is showing more than anything, Tati, we just love your Shabbos. And why? We want to return back to you, knowing everything is you, it was you, and only will be you. So that's a phenomenal way to build a love of Shabbos. Yes, you can add other causes that are personal gain too. But if you want to do it even more lishma, which the Rizal says, lishma is the word l'shem hey. The hey is the hey achroina of yud kei vav kei. That's the Shechina, that's Malchus. So do it l'shem hey for the sake of the Shechina itself. It's an incredible thing. So that's another part of this midday thing. That was what Dr. Lebron was saying, and that's what Sarah Liba was just referencing now. The more attuned you are, and you're going, but these are halachic realities. Shir Amalis is real, like real. And Chibud HaKever is real. And the Chidaz says the Kayach of Ra is real. So if these are real, why don't we get real with Hashem's reality? And at least do it in the merit for others, and do it just for your simple love of Shabbos and the anticipation of redemption. I don't want to just be like straggling around like, oh, redemption's here, oh, Mama's there, light, oh. Imagine if you go and see, PC Yeshua means I'm going to yearn for redemption. I just can't wait. I want to take it as early as possible. Well, that first juncture point, now again, some people say, okay, already by the beginnings of Seis, Thursday night, the very beginning when it's totally dark, 50 minutes now, Yom Shishi already. So you have Mishmar and you stay up at night learning and all the other things. Great. So that's on the Nekeva side of the day, starting at night. In the daytime, grab the Chatzos point, and you're going, these are all points to sensitize yourself to the relevance of Shabbos, the chashivas of Shabbos, the yearning of Shabbos, and the redemptive quality of Shabbos, and you just can't wait. You just hunger and long for it. I have to have it sooner, quicker, faster, but not because you're impatient, because the longing is so great. I mamish want to be ready for it. My mind is calm and settled as possible, and you say it can't be done? Yeah, right, 10,000 now. Trust me, everyone has their price. Our Rosh Yeshiva used to talk like that, and he says, why? Because that's the currency of the body. We're not attuned to the currency of the soul. If he said nitzchis, eternity, yeah, okay, eternity. Okay, but now talk to me 10,000. Well, what's 10,000 over infinity? 0. So a currency of 10,000, which is 0, means something to you, and the currency of infinity or eternity means nothing. It tells you we have a body orientation to this world. What we're trying to do through the Malach of Ma'amer, in a sense of togetherness in time, is to be attuned to a unit of 24 hours, 12 and 12, day and night, splitting the 12 into 6 and 6, understanding that midway point of a day or night is the connecting point, as was brought out, that's twilight. And you're going, really? There's divinity to every part of time and why the mitzvahs are tied to what they are? Exactly right. And the sense of togetherness means that time isn't despaired. So if I'm time challenged or striving for the divinity of time, it just means I have to plug into my rhythm that speaks to my soul. And once you find your rhythm of time, I'm giving you the divine way to look at it, as is brought down in Kabbalah and Chassidus. And then this may not speak to you. You may find, even if you do things very practically, you still got to be attuned to light and dark, which is Zachar and the Keva, and the unit of a time. Some people relate to units of time, like, I relate to seconds and minutes and half an hours and hours. Great, if that's your quantitative measure, start with there. But we want to merge quantity and quality. We want to merge the Zachar and the Keva parts, because that's where the blending is and the togetherness. And the more you get attuned to that, you fall into the mitzvot in a wholly new way, because it's a completely different mitzvah when you understand and relate to time. And trust me, no one is truly time challenged. We just have to break the barriers of the body that want comfort and ease and relaxation. And we're not attuned to our own soul rhythm. Once we do, you will find your place. I've worked with people who've been extremely time challenged, like extreme. But most of the languages that were presented to them just weren't working. And once we got out of what are all the things not working, what would be your most natural rhythm of time? And once we could find that, then we could plug it in, and sure enough, look at that. Every soul has time and space for themselves. Hashem tailored.
Wow. This is my language. This is amazing. Thank you. Because my goal is chatzos for sure. But you know what I was thinking? Maybe I know you'll love to use these lines, but the yearning thing is the most crucial thing, right? I mean, it's all over davening if you pay attention, right? It's all through Shemana Esrei. It's so I think like societally, we're in a place where people don't have time to yearn because everything is instamatic, right? You want something, you don't have to wait to go to the store, you just order it on Amazon, and you're mad if it's not the next day because you don't have Prime. There's no yearning anymore. There's no letters. There's nothing. It's Instagram world. So those of us who are older can appreciate and maybe prefer. I still prefer to write my notes, but I was thinking about one thing with Shabbos in particular that I try to share with people, and that is we are asked to be in a zone of yearning for the Yom Shekulo Shabbos.
Correct.
Right. So I always say to my women, like, so if we want the Yom Shekulo Shabbos, doesn't it make sense to start with Shabbos Shekulo Shabbos?
Correct.
Like a Shabbos, not like.
Of course, exactly.
So that like, but this, I really, really appreciate this take on this. And I really want to find more about this. What did you just say? You just said something that I wrote down, falling into the mitzvos in a wholly new way. It's such a beautiful way to put it, because
Yes. Yeah.
falling into, the whole idea of what you've taught us, and keep teaching us, which is to bring consciousness, to bring, to lofty living on the ground, to really take hold of your bracha, the amazingness of saying shahakol, like things that we just don't, like Rav Miller had that, he was that was how he rolled, right? A glass of water, I was just reading, his son said was like the finest wine in the universe, So I would love, can you do more of this? Can you address this more, like in more detail, like another time, just expound the way you do? Or did you already, that I missed that one?
I mean, we can expound more perhaps next week, but which point are you asking for more expounding on? Just so
I don't know if everybody else agrees with me, but I feel like we making use of our time and keeping everything elevated, everything, in our work day, obviously, I mean, I'm a speech therapist and you're a therapist. When I go in the door now, I try to, when I hit the mezuzah, touch the mezuzah, I'm like, come in with me, please, and help me be masliach. Like instead of just doing my day.
So I would say the most generic way to ask yourself this question is, what is your relationship to time? How would you describe it? Is it a love relationship? Is it a hate relationship? Is it a frenemy? Sometimes we're friends, sometimes we're enemies. Is it we meet together once in a while? Is it quantitative based? Is it qualitative based? Is it accomplishment and achievement oriented? Is it, I got some time to kill? Or is it, I don't ever have enough time. It's constant lachat. For me, time is pressure. I have so much to do and so little time, and I could never get it done. And like, that's at 120. And even the last 5 minutes before I'm passing, I got so much to do to close my life. And did I make my own funeral arrangements? And like, relax. Like, so if you really talk to your soul, what is you'll find the nakuda. Sometimes it's more on the emes, sometimes it's more on the shekerdik side. Sometimes time is about, I'm very disoriented. I've never could get my hands around time. The Torah talks about time as being both limited and unlimited. So what on earth is it talking about? If it's limited, let's quantify and qualify it. If it's unlimited because we transcend it, then how do we relate to it? You can't have both. And the answer is, the Torah says actually the opposite. You have to relate to it both mugbal in a defined way, from the word gavul, with limits, and bilti mugbal, above limitation. And they both are true. And not only both are true really simultaneously. The body relates to it in a quantifiable, limited way, and the soul relates to it unlimited. And when they network together, they can reconcile that. So time has all sorts of and then let's throw in, Shabbos. Again, we were just talking about this. Rabbi, I don't like Erev Shabbos because it's so much pressure. I have to get ready to do all these things with the kids and the food. And if it's coming home from work, and especially winter time, someone told me, a person told me, I don't like the winter time. I said, why not? Hashem created it. Like, what's your issue? Well, because of Shabbos, I have to get home. And okay, so I understand they have to work the before and there's pressure. But who says you have to get your main preparation? Thank you for Rachel. Nice to have you here. Who says your main preparation has to be the last hour of Shabbos? Really? Why can't you be fully ready the night before? And the answer is that mindset of like, no, I have to do it at the end. But because I'm so pressured and rushed to the end, and I tried to tell this person, no, stop it, stop it. Gee, I know, here we go again, your spiritual this and so forth. I didn't create the soul realm. I didn't create Tosef Shabbos. I didn't create Zmanim, but I hate it. Do you hate right? You're supposed to hate that which is evil. Winter is not evil, even though we may feel like it to the body. Erev Shabbos is not evil. It's beautiful. It's called Chatzos is when the most potent parts of Chol is coming out pre-Shabbos. Well, come on. There's nothing to hate. So this person doesn't have a rhythm. So I tried to very subtly say, you know what? You may want to think about this. And then at the very end, I said, you know what? Maybe you have a point. Maybe I'll think about something. I just had to be totally practical because anything other than complete practical. But that's the whole point here. The whole point is really this for each one of us, that we have our own relationship to time in general. What's our main themes? Then detail them. Then detail them in daytime versus nighttime, Chol, beginning of week, middle and end of week, Chol into Shabbos, Shabbos into Chol, Chol into Yom Tov into Chol, Shabbos, Yom Tov, Chol, like all those things, 3 days are just killer because I think about all the meals, really. If Hashem was pouring something so massive into you, 3 days in a row, I'm going to send you a check today for $1 million, tomorrow 2 million, and the next day 3 million. No, $1 million's enough, please. Oh, stop with too much money. I'm not. If you're a big veer and you have a chesed fund, you can do more. You're not worried about day 2 or day 3. You're going to be thrilled that day 2 and day 3 come. Well, the kedusha of Chol, the kedusha of Yom Tov, and kedusha of Shabbos, and the sensitivities to that are just incredible. And then when you have like another triple overlapping, let's say Shabbos, Chanukah, and Rosh Chodesh, oh my goodness, I mamish had butterflies on that day because we don't have it every year. It doesn't always coincide. Butterflies benching, like it's such a thrill to say all three merge together and feel the kedusha of Zman. Mamish a thrill, like real thrill. So the more we sensitize and allow our soul to do the talking, and even if there's blocks, then ask yourself, what are the blocks around time? I don't know how to quantify it. So if that's the case, I've said this to people, create little things, right? We have this new thing called an alarm, and you can set a time, a clock that can go off every hour to remind yourself the unit of an hour. How did I serve Hashem this last hour? And how am I now getting ready to serve him this upcoming hour? I do this for myself, and thank God, very good with time, but I do this to close out 1 hour and to set going forward for the next hour. And I set the hours at the beginning of the day for the whole day till when I'm going to bed. And it rings as if to say, okay, you close 1 hour, you're getting ready for the void of your next hour, so that there's an intimate relationship with time. And of course, time backwards is the word emit. Don't get me started here because it's very exciting stuff. That's Hashem's emission of something divine through the physicality of time. Right? Because time is an item. ITEM is another derivation. Time is an item through which Hashem expresses his emission in this world. So you're going, wow. We're on the one hand, we're trying to master time, be efficient with time, be productive with time, and all these things. On the other hand, there's this mystical, profound, intangible, you can't ever get your hands around it, the kedusha of Zman, which includes Chol too. There's kedusha and Chol, there's kedusha and Yom Tov, and kedusha and Shabbos, 3 madregas of kedusha. So therefore, the more we become sensitized to that in general, and then plug into the week, and plug into the day, and plug into the day and night, and then quarter it out every 6 hours, you're going, oh my God, all the way down to the 6 constant mitzvahs means in a moment of time, you're going, wow, time is really holy, actually. Like, but okay, it's not just saying it. Like, I feel it. My body senses it, right? Mekadesh Shabbos. To sanctify Shabbos means to sanctify this time called Shabbos. Mekadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim. The Mekadesh Yisrael and the zmanim of Yom Tov. You literally could feel mamish like the divinity of time. That's ma'amer. You're feeling the togetherness of opposites coming and joining, and realize Hashem's behind everything. That's the bouquet effect. If you go to the losh effect of water and flour, rolling in the dough, as it were, spiritually, you sense the reality of time is just a creation. It's not absolute. We only experience time from our perception, but really not, right? A little cute cartoon thing that came out in the probably 50s, 60s. You remember this? You had these little books, cartoons, and in the top you had a little animation in the corner. And if you would flip the book quickly, the animation would go, like Bugs Bunny, and it'll go. And after about 100 pictures, you had about 2 seconds of movement. I remember being absolutely fascinated as a kid, probably that in puzzles more than anything else. And I was older and reflecting on it, this truth came out. I wasn't so interested in the movement. I was interested in the fact that the movement can slow down to a caption that has no movement. Now there's just one caption. Let's say 100 pages flicked together quickly gives you, let's say, about 2.5 seconds, 3 seconds worth of animation. But what is animation? One picture strung together at some degree of velocity that gives the perception of movement. But in reality, it's just an artist drawing a picture that when strung together and propelled forward gives the perception. And therefore, when we talk about Hashem animating the world, Hashem is the ultimate cartoonist that animates time itself, which means we're there. We're in his caption. So we experience life as going through time, but really in actuality, it's this is the site of this pasuk. Hashem, through his goodness, continuously renews all of creation. Why? One caption at a time, strung together, meaning his will, projection of his imagination, strung together through the velocity of time, 186,000 miles a second. That's pretty fast, to give the appearance of movement, time, things. But in reality, in ultimate reality, there is no time. That's the perception he wants us to have, which means time is a creation. And since time is a creation and our Tati animates it, he says in the Shamalas, I want you to Mekadesh it, both the Chol and the Kodesh of Yom Tov and Shabbos, because in reality, it's nothing. And therefore, the way you relate to time, quantitatively, qualitative, internally and externally, is how we animate the Kedusha of time. And you're going, wow, that's what it means. We say it every day in davening. But is that what it means? He continuously renews creation. What does that mean? One moment strung together in a way that gives the appearance of time. So he both wants us to relate to time as a creation. Moirdek, thank you, Hashem, for creating time and us. And then help us, thank you for going into time as a way to ascend above. Now, do you understand what's really going on here? That's ma'amer. Because when there's these two opposites, day and night, aren't just physical. It's not just about particles. It's about spiritual realities coming together. And we're being ma'amer them. And we're letting our soul grow through time. Then we bring out the divinity in time. And the more we bring that deeper, the lower togetherness goes to the higher level, that's losh. And then you feel there really is no time. That mitzvah is timeless. Eternity is timeless. And the Zohar Kodesh says, to all these psukim in Chumash, Avraham ba b'yamim, Avraham came with his days, Sarah ba b'yamim, she came with her days. It even says it about Ishmael, all the Abbas. What do you mean they came with their days? They had good stop clocks. They had good efficiency scales. They used their time really well. No, the Zohar Kodesh says it's falling. They eternalized the impermanence of this physical world. Time came with them because they lived in a divine realm. The time wasn't physical. So time, they came with their days meant they preserved the physicalness of this world. They eternalized it, the impermanence of the physical world of time and space. That's what the Zohar says. Unbelievable, which meant they experienced the eternal dimension in this physical world in time and space for all their experiences. Not just they were great, not just Maisa Avos Siman Labani, not just they did incredible things of Kedusha. There was not just the Dasaras Nisyones, the 10 tests. No. They brought out the divine quality in every moment of time, and the time came with them, which meant time was a creation. They understood that. And they didn't get caught up with time. They went through and lifted up time. Now, is that unbelievable, my dear friends? So you got to find your own relationship with time. That's what Ma'amar and Losh is sensitizing ourselves to. When we get into space in a week or two, we'll talk about how to relate to space the same way. So you're going, wow, means I'm not time challenged? No, a yid is time challenged insofar as we struggle with how to relate to the quantitative, qualitative, the internal and external parts of time, seeing they're separate, try and bring them together, and then eventually unify them. That's Ma'amar and Leish. Every soul struggles with that their own unique way. No two people are alike. And therefore, so chashuv, honor the way you relate to time and the way you don't relate to time. Honor the way you see time and you seize time. Honor the way you struggle with time. And you have difficulties with that because that's your soul fixing itself through the creation called time to discover Hashem's ultimate goodness. Is this incredible? Come on. It's like, that's Ma'amar. That's the koyach of Ma'amar and Loish moving through time. But you really have to break time down and have your own personal relation. And yep, we have to grow it. Again, we're going to do this more over time. Okay, I've spoken way, way too much. I told you, these are very exciting topics for me. Okay, other comments or questions, reflections? We have another 15 minutes.
I'll take a moment to share.
Please.
Okay. So I've really been addressing this whole issue, and I've made major strides in my life in terms of time in the last year. Now, granted, it helps that I have a husband who gets up at 3:30 in the morning, but for me, really, it was working on, I'm extremely ADD challenged, but for me, I'm understanding that that's about my boundaryless, the fact that I have boundary challenges in time and soul and in space. So I really wanted to fix the boundaries I have in time, because I just saw I was just not getting enough out of my 24 hours a day. And I also understood that my Yetzer Hara had more control over me in certain hours. And those were my key hours. And I felt like I was constantly battling him in my davening, battling him in my work time. And I realized, even though naturally for me, I'm more of a night person. I've always been more of a night person. I think because just I'm so hyper throughout the day, and at night after a whole day, my nervous system finally calms down. But really, it became a big problem because then I wasn't sleeping at night. So I wasn't sleeping at night, and yet I was waiting for the night just to calm down, and then I wasn't getting self-care time, and my whole life just became billable, and it wasn't working with my husband's schedule, it wasn't working with my family's schedule. And so I listened to Rabbi's classes, and he said that to work with the hours, work with the daytime hours, work with the light of the day. And I resolved to go to bed at an earlier hour and to wake up at an earlier hour. And it's amazing. It's the same 24 hours, but it's not the same day anymore. I have so much more time. I think also because I'm wasting less time because I needed more downtime just because I was so tired throughout the day. I wasn't getting enough sleep. I wasn't getting enough self-care time. My tefillos, everything just wasn't filling me the way I needed to be filled. So I find now that I get up before the daylight. I have self-care time at that time. I like to draw. I find that also because I don't have the demands of family or the world or, my cell phone or anything like that, my tefillos go better. My Yetzer Hara has a much harder time fighting me because I have that freedom then. And then Baruch Hashem, for most of us, we're in Nishma. So for me, my goal is by the time 7:55 comes, I've already davened, I've already had self-care time. So then once Nishmas is over, again, when I'm feeling well, and I've been traveling a lot, so I have kind of been off for a month, a little bit, I think 3 weeks or so, that just life just took a different turn. And I finally got to grasp this concept of time that I literally have spent my whole life battling and not even understanding. I also liked, Rabbi, what you said about setting a timer. I have, I was working with a time management person, and she told me to get one of these like clocks. And like literally, I can see how my hour goes. I can see time. And if I say to myself, no, there goes beeping, if I say to myself, okay, you have 20 minutes to perform this time task. And so I look at that and I've learned that, okay, it's going to take me 5 minutes to build into that task. It's going to take me 5 minutes at the end to come out of that task. So let's say it's a 20-minute task. I'm not going to have 20 minutes. I'm really only going to have 10 minutes, really great 10 minutes. Did I do that right? Yes. I'm also math challenged to accomplish what I want to accomplish. But if I'm more aware because of boundaries with time of how much time I truly need to accomplish something, it's a game changer. Now, the other thing that majorly changed was Shabbos, because now that I'm getting up earlier on Friday, instead of battling my Yetzer Hara, getting up later and always being behind the 8 ball, and then just a day of I'm never on time, I'm always behind, I'm starting so much earlier in the day, and which actually I was blown away since the clock changed. I've never been able to be, when Shabbos comes in so early. Now, granted, I just want to throw out there, I don't have little kids at home. And I don't have elderly parents I'm taking care of. So I don't have the same things that a lot of people have. I don't have the constant demands like that. But Shabbos, the fact that when Shabbos comes in now in the 4 o'clock hours, I'm so ready. Now, I'm not saying like there aren't little things in the end. Yeah, there's always little things in the end. But overall, I've been so blown away since I've made this time change, how much more prepared I am for Shabbos. I'm part of this global 10 minutes before. And it's a different game. It is so different. And I feel almost like I'm appreciating time as opposed to my whole life just hating time because I never got it. I always just felt that it was this monster that was just, I just didn't get it. It's like being an English speaker in China. Like I just did not get it. And everyone else got it and everyone was going through it, but like, whatever. So anyway, so I'm just saying that, now is it hard sometimes like giving up the night? Baruch Hashem, I have a teenager at home who's like, okay, the fact that mom and dad go to bed pretty early. But I try to fit my time with her and other times during the day, first thing in the morning, spending time. So, after dinner, like trying to find those times that work for my family, but I am a much happier Eved Hashem, a much happier, just overall person that I'm getting the self-care, the time with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I'm just feeling so much more menuchadek. And I'm also trying to fit in relaxation time during the day, even if it's a short Hisbodedus session. Before, I never felt like I could take it because I was always behind the 8 ball. It's like I was never getting all the ikr things in my life done. But now if I can get so much more of that done in the earlier hours, and it's the same hours, I still have to finish my day at whatever hour that is, but there's so much more going on because I'm just valuing and appreciating and recognizing the time component. And with that, thank you.
Okay, thumbs up to, okay, so very important. Everyone has to define, redefine, and re-examine their relationship to time, whether you're behind the 8 ball or the 8 ball is number 8. It means you rise above it. That's up to us. It's not something we just think about now. That's from birth. And everyone will have their time opportunities and challenges. But the job is to befriend time, date it, eventually marry it, and then eventually over a long period of time, mekadesh it, sanctify it. And you have to find your own soul rhythm. And if not, go find whoever you need to, whether it's a time management coach or whomever you would want to work with, get some help because you may have to tackle time from different kinds of angles until you fall into it enough that you're not behind it, but you're working with it and eventually rising with it. And clearly our Abbas, right, we're teaching us how to do that, and we have to fall into our way. But don't get discouraged by the problems you have with time. Define them as opportunities, work on the opportunities, and eventually go into those opportunities and rise with them. And if we would really do that, like really, truly, like really, you'd realize Hamachadush Betuva B'koyam Tamid Ma'aseh Bereishis. Hashem is continuously renewing all of creation with his goodness. Time itself is only a creation, and he wants us to befriend it, join it, couple with it, and unify with it, and ultimately sanctify it, right? And when we do that, right, as we say, Bisha'a Tova, and I've said this before, but this is such an incredible thing. The Arizal says the word Sha'a can mean an hour, it can mean a moment, depending how it's translated. And the word Sha'a is the same gematria as the word Shechina. So the word Sha'a means when the Shechina emanates through, called time, that bestows blessing in the world, which means it's not really time. It looks like time, but it's the Shechina couched in the quantitative unit called time, coming out through space. That's what Bisha'a Tova means. In through the Shechina comes time, and the time brings Tov into this world. So you're going, wow. Don't be afraid of any part of time, because it's part of your relationship to Kadosh Baruch Hu that he wants you to define, reconcile, work out, and come to terms with. Okay, we have enough for one more comment or reflection. Please feel free if you would like, and if not, we will wrap up.
Hi, it's Malka Sarah. I'm just, when I'm blown away by the whole thing, but especially, well, not especially, but including by Vasya, by everybody. Can I ask her like what time she goes to sleep?
Please feel free. She's not revealing any great family secrets, so
Only up to her. It's up to
Okay, so my goal is to be starting to wind down just a little bit before 10. So if I aim, it really depends on the night and everything else, and sometimes even earlier. Sometimes if I'm getting up before 6, like my goal really is to get up by 5:30. I find if I can get up by 5:30, it really gives me a full day. But even if it's, I like to say that if I haven't started winding down by 10:30, I'm not going to accomplish my goals. So if I just throw that out. So, but yeah, ultimately, really starting to seriously wind down by 10 and be asleep by 10:30, which I could never do before. I could never fall asleep that fast before when I was pushing myself all day and I was just, as we call it, drunk with exhaustion. If I'm drunk with exhaustion, that's not going to happen. But if I'm, taking time throughout the day, and again, it's all boundaries with time throughout the whole day. I've learned that as Rabbi said, there's rhythms to the time of the day, and the more real I am with those rhythms of my body throughout the day, not ignoring them and pushing them and say, oh, you just do it. Like, no, right. How am I feeling right now? Do I really need a break? Do I need to take a 10-minute nap? Whatever it is, the more I became real with my body and the rhythm of time, the more it just worked.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like to highlight Malka Sarah's question, my wife's comment, and put the two together for everyone. Another question about time you can ask yourself is, in terms of how much wind down time do I need before I can be in a menuchadic state to go to sleep? Have you ever quantified that? You're going, well, what do you mean? An air traffic controller with a pilot, they have it down to virtually the seconds, literally. I know where the runway is. I have 82.5 miles. I know how fast I'm traveling. I know how much I have to descend. And I have a very, very strong, so that I announce at that exactly 44-minute mark, ladies and gentlemen, over an overseas flight, 12 hours, 11 hours. We're now preparing to land, and you're going land, like, I don't see America, I don't, like, where's New York or wherever, LaGuardia, I don't see it. But they say we have a 45-minute trajectory, and we're starting the descension. How do they randomly pick to start descending 45 minutes before on a plane that's going hundreds of miles per hour, that's hundreds of miles away from its destination, and it has to hit a runway perfectly? and with a smooth landing, so you come back again. Because it's perfectly calculated and air traffically controlled, and they're dialoguing together. Hashem is our air traffic controller. We are pilots, and we have to get familiar with how much wind down time do we need to start the descent in order to hit the runway. Once we hit it, that we make a soft, gentle landing in the runway, that we taxi, and we go into the hangar. So just ask yourself that question. Some people can shut down very quickly, other people very slow. And you may say, well, it depends on any given day. Somewhere between, let's say, an hour and 5 hours. Okay, well, that's super huge. Well, can we make it a little tighter? What are the variables? What's the range? And then start your descent and then experiment. But at least you're going, wow, I'm working with an air traffic controller and I'm the pilot and I want to make. But if I know my range is, let's say, 1 to 3 hours, and I need to be at bed a certain time to get up a certain time, and I'm like hours over, you'd be fired instantly as a pilot. You missed. Yeah. Oh, well, we showed up on time, great, but we came 6.5 hours late.
Can I make one more comment?
Yeah.
For me personally, Melachos, just because you asked, equally important is how much wind-up time I need in the morning. If I like had to force myself out of bed, this wouldn't fly because I'd fight it. I know for myself, I have a routine in the morning. How long does it take to get to my first thing that I want to get to? I'm an old lady with a creaky body, so I know I need to physically stretch before I spiritually stretch. I know I want, brush my teeth, wash my face. So like I've calculated being kind to myself. How much time without forcing myself do I require to do the things I need to do before I do my other self-care time and then my davening and then get to Nishmas Kol Chai. So like, I think that's also very important, that the same thing with the wind down, but it also has to be built into your wind up.
Yeah, thank you. Very helpful.
Yeah, it's great, good. So look, we'll close with this. So maybe we'll do it off the thing. We'll see after the Shema comes. Maybe we'll do another part to another aspect of time as it relates to Ma'amar and Loish, and then we're going to get into the spatial realm. How do you relate to space? But Hashem, we should all be blessed to be able to understand and get a feel for how we relate to Hashem, relate to time, Hashem's time and our time. Don't be afraid to stare down the dualities and paradoxes and conflicts. Come to slowly resolve them and realize that it's all about a Zachar Nekeva, a male-female relationship of emes and Amunah, light and darkness, and how we can bring them together in a limited way and ultimately in an ultimate way. And eventually to see that, wow, we're really living in Hashem's world. And the more we manage that with our body and soul together, the more we're living in Hashem's world in the true sense. We should all be Zeicha. So thank you everyone for coming, and great discussion. It's excellent. Okay, have a very mazel tov week, a heilig chodesh, and Mirz Hashem, we'll continue this next week. Look forward.
Thank you. Chodesh tov. Thank you so much.